DoorDash, the connection point between you at home and restaurant quality meals for a price. I'll cover the nitty-gritty details of their business, their financials, and also do a SWOT analysis. This is not financial advice, and here's what they do in a single sentence. They act as a connector. They can go get groceries for you, a random thing like a wrench, and the thing that got them started, food. I am sure that you've been at home hungry, wishing for a toasted brioche bun with some crunchy lettuce, sauce that leaves a nice little tingle in your mouth that all perfectly complements the patty. And at the same time, not wanting to leave your house. Man, I just made myself hungry. They operate as DoorDash in the US and Wolt, which is a little more international. They bought it in 2022 for $8.1 billion, which did eventually fall to $3.5 billion because it was an all-stock transaction. Both these companies do both food and product deliveries, and in December of 2024, they served 42 million users. Now, they aren't serving everyone for free though. This isn't a charity. They use what I call the million cuts model. They get their cut by charging everyone a million different fees. One of the ways to reduce the fees you pay is through a membership, either Dash Pass or Wolt Plus. It costs $10 a month and you pay $0 in delivery fees. But make no mistake, they still have 999,999 different fees. You just removed one. For example, service fees. There's also a small order fee. There's the regulatory fees. They're trying to get you mad at your politicians because they're forcing them to pay their employees a little more and they just want to add on and pass that cost to you. Then you have to tip on top of that. And if you don't tip, you're either European or a less than mediocre human being. 22 million people have a membership with DoorDash. So there are power users. Maybe they DoorDash food while they're at work, have friends over, are just ballin', can't cook, or maybe it's just become an addiction for some people at this point. Another important group are the merchants. These are the people who actually make your food or sell you the stuff, the restaurants, the stores, those people. DoorDash takes 15 to 30% of the total order value. Their logic is they're bringing in a customer who otherwise might not have ordered from your store, and also you don't have to pay a server to serve them. You just replace that with a driver. They can deliver groceries from the store to you. For example, you're making food and you forgot the tortillas, the most important part. What are you gonna do? DoorDash it. Although ordering one item may not be worth it, DoorDash says it starts small. You start off with one tomato and then eventually goes to your full grocery list. DoorDash just serves as a link between the parties. There's the consumer, the merchants, the drivers, and they all link together. They call them Dashers. And in 2024, 8 million people dashed. They paid out a total of $18 billion. They are super flexible and they give drivers total control of their schedule. But is it worth it? Well, to DoorDash it is. For the driver, it depends on the person. The Dashers are considered contractors, so there aren't as many laws protecting them. They have to pay for gas, the wear and tear on their car, and they also need to make money. That is something that has plagued the industry. DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, everyone. Another thing that they do is leverage their existing infrastructure and serve as a white label company. No, it's not a racial thing. It's when you rebrand a product. Instead of ordering from the DoorDash app, you order from the restaurant's own website. The restaurant cooks up your creamy Alfredo pasta and DoorDash just takes care of the delivery and boom, you're eating. They call it the commerce platform. They also will help you set up your site, and don't get it twisted, they will still take a cut. Now that I've described what they're doing, how are they doing? Well, when we take a look at the revenue, you can see that ever since the start of the pandemic, they've been growing fiercely. Their compound annual growth rate is 43%. This year though, they grew by 24%. And if you're saying, hold up, the revenue is 11 billion and they paid out 18 billion to Dashers. The math isn't mathing. How does that work? Well, DoorDash counts revenue as the amount received from the customer minus the amount from the restaurant minus the amount paid to the driver. That net amount left over, that's revenue to them. It's some principal agent accounting rule stuff. Don't worry about it. If you want the total amount spent on their platform, that's 80 billion, which is up 20% from 67 billion, which is up 25% from 53 billion 2 years ago. Now again, this does not include certain parts for accounting reasons and rules. Read the notes down below in their financial statements if you want to know, because it's too detailed and I'm not going to get into it. Now, why don't you take a quick guess about where most of that revenue comes from? 88% is from the United States of America. 88. So just be aware, while the international segment is growing, the US is their bread and their butter. Now, before we get into net income, take a couple deep breaths. Lower your expectations and think pleasant thoughts, because they're not great. It's been very bad for many years, although it is finally increasing. You do have to recognize the massive improvements that they've made. Here's what they had to say on that.
The number of miles that use new verticals is growing, the order frequency is growing, and more importantly, they're spending more with us on a monthly basis.
The cost of infrastructure like the software or the app doesn't really go up that much. Neither does the cost when you order more expensive goods or just more goods in a single order. But hey, look, they made their first profit this year, so let's just give them a round of applause. But also, let's just take a look at that under a microscope. Now, when you look at the income statement, you can see that the reason why they are in the green this year is because of interest income. While that is also technically income for real, it's not like the business income, you know what I mean? But while they are struggling just a little bit, they are on the right track. They have made progress. Now let's take a look at their balance sheet. First thing you'll notice, lots of cash. Look, they're in a risky business. They weren't profitable. They didn't really want debt and chose to go the equity route instead. A lot of these companies became super popular in the pandemic because habits were formed and people have just continued to use them. Now that event is over and people do want to go in stores, which is why restaurants aren't all out of business, sometimes you just want to order in and watch a movie, or you're at work and you don't want to spend half your break waiting in line. So you just order in. There also is a lot of scrutiny for all these companies about the driver's work status and their pay, because new laws can always start coming and that could cause a lot of damage to them. Now let's talk a little competition. They have 67% market share in the US. Now this is 2023 data, but they have one in the US and they are growing internationally. Uber does exist and is in the US and is a lot more profitable and can still very easily fight for some share. Grubhub, another one of their competitors, was taken private at a major loss but does still operate. They also have to deal with a company called Instacart, which will deliver groceries for you, and a restaurant's own delivery service. For example, Domino's. They've had their delivery going on for a while, online, app, on the phone, and it's pretty good. Now, while they do have a whole lot of market share in the US, they aren't a world leader. The company with the most revenue and users is called Meituan. I might have butchered the pronunciation, but it's located in China, and that is the biggest delivery market in the world. Make no question about it. They're dwarfing the US. The person in DoorDash's driver's seat is Tony Zhu. He's had the role of CEO ever since 2013 when the company started. He only gets paid $300K, which is chump change, but he does have a $2.3 billion net worth. So, and when you look at his trades, you can see that the CEO is constantly selling. He only has 1,500 Class A shares left. 1,500. But that is just Class A shares, because there are two types of shares outstanding. There's Class A, the public ones, the ones you buy in the stock exchange. One share, one vote. Easy. Class B does get a little more complicated. First of all, one share, 20 votes. Tony does not have all the shares. That's shared with his two other co-founders, but he does have the voting rights to those shares. They're given to him through a contract with the other co-founders. So he does have control of the company, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is something to take note of. Read the statements if you want to find out all the details, but there's just way too many, so we'll leave it at that. He does personally own 13 billion Class A shares, and if you were to price his 13 billion Class A shares at the current stock price, he has a $2.4 billion net worth. So he's invested in the company. The starting date for this graph is when DoorDash went public. They ended off right below Uber, who raked in 9 billion this year. Check out that video if you want to find out more. DoorDash has made some massive improvements since then. I mean, in 2020, the revenue wasn't even 3 billion. Now they're over 3 times that, and they're profitable. So they got back to their baseline over the past 4 years, but the question is, where do they go from here? Something that's in their favor is their strong US market share. It's hard for new entrants to come in, and they do also have a leg internationally with Wolt, which is a Finnish company, by the way. Since people go on the app to spend money, it is smart to put up ads there, and they do make some money from this, although they will ensure that it will not under any circumstances interfere too much with the user's actual experience of DoorDash. They have a strong subscriber base and have a network where they can leverage all their delivery infrastructure. Being partnered with over 590,000 restaurants, they start to benefit from the network effects. If you have more restaurants, then you get more customers. If you have more orders, then you get more delivery drivers who are needed. And then delivery drivers go on the app and dash more. And then after, customers get their food faster. Customers enjoy the experience, so more restaurants are like, oh, a lot of customers like it there, we'll go there. And then the cycle continues and continues and continues. Now restaurants can be on multiple platforms, and there are a few caveats there, but you guys get my point. Some weaknesses are 1 year of profitability does not erase the massive deficit that they've built up. They still do have some work to do. Their fees are also expensive. Look, if someone wants a bowl of pasta, they are gonna have to pay a premium, and that's just gonna turn off some customers. Grocery chains do have their own delivery network. For example, Walmart, they have their own network, And a competitive advantage that DoorDash can't compete with is just the complete integration with all of Walmart's supply chains, and that's just a negative. Some opportunities are growing net income. Look, they've made progress. We'll see how it goes from here. They can also expand their white label branding because not everyone wants the DoorDash logo and just the purchase from the app. Some people want to build up their own website. That could help. The delivery market is growing, and here's a little clip from their earnings call.
We're still single-digit percentages of the U.S. restaurant industry sales. If you looked, globally, that number would be even smaller. And then obviously, if you added in the retail categories, or if you added in the first-party channels that we also support across every category, and then if you added, the population, point that you made, we are a speck of dust in terms of, how penetrated we are.
By expanding into delivering products, they get a much easier job. Because when you're delivering products and not food, first of all, it does not have to be warm when I'm getting it. Secondly, you can't spill a wrench. And thirdly, when I order my food, I want it now. I'm hungry. When you order a wrench, it can wait a couple hours. Some threats are Uber Eats and other well-known brands could easily swoop in. I mean, they spent a lot of money on advertising a long time ago, and people still haven't really forgotten that. If consumer sentiment drops because people think that there might be a recession coming soon, that could be bad. Well, that's DoorDash. Like, sub, and peace, guys.